Set championships have seemed to be a huge success within the Disney Lorcana world, in all honesty. Today, we have a look at some of the reported events. And when I mean some of, I mean like so many. This might have been the biggest weekend in Lorcana history. 258 reported top 8 decks. That's just top 8 decks, which means the amount of players and reported like information out there is insane. Just remarkable weekend for Disney Lorcana, and that was only week one. We still have week two coming. Kind of insane. Let's get into some of the data. Set champs week one, Disney Lorcana breakdown. We have 65 Ruby Amethyst decks in top 8, 43 Emerald Steel, 40 Ruby Sapphire, 28 Amber Steel, 26 Sapphire Steel, 20 Amethyst Emerald, 13 Amethyst Steel, 11 Ruby Amber, 5 Sapphire Amethyst, 3 Ruby Steel, 2 Ruby Emerald, 1 Amber Emerald, and 1 Amber Amethyst for a total of 258 decks. That is a pretty insane number for one weekend across the globe. I mean, yes, not every single one of these tournaments are 50, 60 players, right? I'm not sitting here telling you that. But to even have this many stores report this many events and really seeing how many players have been able to get out there and play for incredible cards such as the Enchanted Rockstar Stitch, just, I mean, super, super great weekend for Disney Lorcana. Really excited. If you had a blast this weekend, if you picked up a Stitch, let me know in the comments because I only got to play for one so far. I went 2-2 drop. If you didn't see the social media clip of me getting absolutely crushed by Emerald Steel, it's out there. It's on Facebook. It's on, I think, Twitter as well. It was mean. I got beat up, guys. But seriously, let's get into some of the deck lists. Speaking of Emerald Steel, shout out to Quest for Two's first place winner, Austin Jennings. Emerald Steel was the second most played deck on the weekend. Also, second most successful, I should say, with 43 top eights. This was one of the winners among them. This list definitely has been growing in popularity over the past couple weeks, pretty much ever since the pack tournament a few weekends ago. But every player has been molding it and kind of adapting it to their metagame and showing the different layers of success within the ink combination for the Prince John Ursula combo. In this particular list, we find Tiana coming back. And what I'll say about Tiana is that while I'm not the craziest fan of Tiana, and I think that it's actively bad into some of your better matchups on average, it is kind of a warranted line that can be problematic for certain lists that just don't have a good answer to it. Now, Ruby has more than one answer. Before, it was like, oh, they had to play Maui, yada, yada. Well, now they have Maui and Medusa, so she definitely looks weaker and weaker into Ruby. And being an uninkable could be a costly decision. But if your metagame is mostly all steel, then Tiana can definitely be a very problematic character. Playing 3 kits is a pretty high number. It's something we've seen in and out of these lists over the last couple weeks. But kit can truthfully be a large tempo swing in many games. So having him on board as an option is definitely something worth considering. This list, by default, has been extraordinarily successful. Adding in the Zeuses, having the strength of Raging Fire, Let the Storm Rage On, and the Baboom is a wonderful mix of inkable and uninkable removal. While the Baboom can kind of just be a filler slot or a flex slot, there are definitely plenty of little Curse Merfolks and Flynn Riders, etc., running around that if you can prevent them from gating 2 lore before ever having to challenge them and discarding a card, it could be a pretty large tempo swing just by removing the character from the board and moving the game along at a more suitable manner for your list. Sapphire Amethyst won the 57-player tournament at Game Center. This was actually the tournament that we streamed on Sunday. Unfortunately, we couldn't stream the top 8, but we did stream the first 6 rounds. We did not get this particular version of the list on stream, but we did get one of the other blurples on stream a couple times throughout the weekend. We streamed Saturday and Sunday. So if you're looking for any of those things, you should go check out our Twitch channel, The Forbidden Mountain, twitch.tv. We had, man, 5 rounds cut to a top 8 on Saturday, and then 6 rounds that did cut to a top 8 as well, but I had to fly home and kind of get out of there. But shout out to Brandon here picking up the win, getting in the final round. He started the tournament 1-1-1 and then 3-0'd out and found his way into a sneaky top 8. And hey, sometimes we take those. And this occasion, he ended up taking home a champion playmat and a stitch. So congratulations to you, sir. Let's talk about the list a little bit. So I think the most intriguing card here is, without a doubt, the Mim Dragon. There's been some chatter around this card, and if it's good into certain matchups like Ruby Amethyst and the Ruby Sapphire decks. And I do think that the more of these lists that lean off of Lady Trimmings and lean more onto Medusas definitely can kind of leave things on the table pretty easily. And if they don't be prepared preemptively because you're not threatening them, all of a sudden you can kind of trade a couple of cards in, put a 5/7 into play with 4 lure and evasive, triggering whatever you return back to your hand. You can obviously get the additional benefits from replaying your cards in this list, like the Merlin Goats and Foxes, like the Mickey Mouse and the Grandma Talas, along with, if there's ever a world where you can return cards like Hades and Elsa, lots of ways to truly utilize the Mim Dragon. However, my personal opinion of the card is that it could be to your own detriment, and it's still very swingy, and you need to have like very particular board states for you to even be able to play the card. When in doubt, it is inkable, thankfully, so you're never really stuck with it. But that's definitely the biggest card in here that I think stands out. Playing the 4 Corilla DeVilles is really just a testament of most of the Ruby Amethyst metagame going back to 40 mini surfers. So having Corella there is a nice little way of saying, you can play your mini game, but you better find a way to deal with my Corella first. All in all, this list was pretty successful in the Minnesota metagame, having multiple top 8s throughout the weekend, picking up a win, being more successful even past that in other tournaments from what I'm hearing. So, this is definitely one to look out for if you're trying to be a little different, if you're trying to hedge your bets. What I will say, and I do want to say that this is important, set championships are definitely a local blend and really kind of preparing for your expected local metagame. And it is a little different than preparing for like a bigger, larger event of a certain scale, of just kind of like weighing your numbers and weighing results and things like that. If you know your local metagame, then you can take a list like this, not necessarily Sapphire Amethyst, but like even Ruby Steel, things like that, like of these off color and off ink combinations that don't see a ton of love and play and like success, and really mold them to their metagame. And that's what happened here. I think in the end, like, we made a lot of decisions that really affected how that local metagame was looking in that given week. And we found success with it. And I think that's really outstanding. So again, shout out to Brandon. And yeah, Minnesota was awesome, guys. I'll talk more about it at the end. Ruby Sapphire was the 3rd most successful deck on the weekend, having 40 top 8s. This was merely one of them at the top deck keep set championships. Ruby Sapphire has been on an uproar since a few weeks ago, winning the Pack Challenge tournament. And this is another one where you can see the list ever growing. What I really do love to see is the addition here of 3 Let It Goes, 4 How Far I'll Goes, kind of finally getting some songs into the mix of this list and kind of utilizing the RAM package even further and really putting characters into play and gaining the full extent of their benefits. Being able to have the option to sing with Hiram and not always force the action of just drawing cards is pretty uncontested. And specifically in play lines where we play one on turn 1, we have Popsicle. On turn 2, we have 1 jump ahead. Turn 3, we have Hiram, draw 2 cards. And then on turn 4, we're not forced to play another Popsicle or a Shield, we can just sing with Hiram, still gain additional ink, draw an additional card, give ourselves more option, ink a new card, and then move the game forward again. I think that these are really sweet play lines. And of course, having the Grandma Tala replace herself and also be able to sing How Far I'll Go has been even more additional play lines. So for someone that has really been playing this list a lot and seeing a lot from it, I can definitely say that it's very similar to the Ruby Amethyst playstyle, where you probably are close to 52, 53, 54 cards, and the last 5 or 6 cards are up for debate and flexible. The Shield of Virtue, the Let It Goes, the Judy Hops all seem pretty flexible, in my humble opinion. Whether or not you want to go to the extent of playing 4 Grandma Talas, the 2 bells, while it's nice to be able to double dime your bell and kind of just gain lore out of nowhere and win games that way, you may be able to find some additional characters to play in that slot over it, although I definitely enjoy having the 5 lore character come down and kind of gain instantly with Lucky Dime, so it's hard to replace that aspect. But if you're looking at a more aggressive metagame, with other decks we're going to talk about on this list, then you should probably be including a few more early aggressive answers and maybe just more than 2 Queen of Hearts. Ruby Sapphire truly has been one of the more successful decks within the metagame the last few weeks. I would not expect to go to any set champs where there isn't at least one of them. If it's over dramatic in your particular area, then I would certainly be teching my deck to play against it. So these are the winning decks that were reported this weekend. As you can see here, there are 13 Ruby Amethyst, 10 Emerald Steel, 8 Ruby Sapphire, 5 Amber Steel, 4 Sapphire Steel, 3 Amethyst Steel, 2 Ruby Amber, 2 Amethyst Emerald, and 2 Sapphire Amethyst. So while Ruby Amethyst had an incredibly large lead in top 8s, it's just a little bit ahead of its competitors in the wins. And, when I really started thinking about set championships and what I wanted to play and what I wanted to bring, it really turned into this, you never ever really know, specifically in maybe your first one, what your opponents are going to be playing, what the field looks like. If you're, if you walk into a room and you see 10 or 15 new people, it's definitely not the same type of metagame that you're used to at your locals. And with that, I like leaning towards Ruby Amethyst as an example, because I do think it gives you a lot of leeway in gameplay and matchups and kind of leveraging your skill versus an opposing player's skill on average. Might not always work out, but that's kind of where my strategy is. I definitely did an entire interview about Ruby Amethyst just last week with Dave, and on our second list here with the 10 Emerald Steel decks, an interview with Ryan Miles about Emerald Steel. So if you're looking to learn even more about either of those decks, you should check out those videos. They're in the description below. But Ruby Sapphire, Amber Steel, Sapphire Steel, Amethyst Steel, all still really representing very well and showing that they can win these tournaments. So when you look at this list and you see, hey, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different winning lists in a 258 reported top 8 deck list, that's saying that the metagame is still wide. It really is dependent on your particular local metagame. So you can make these decisions of playing the decks that you want to play and not necessarily be forced to play one of the higher up lists here. If you're into Amber Steel, Tiana aggro with Lantern, hey, you probably have a chance. If your metagame is turned into Ruby Amethyst and Ruby Sapphire mirrors, and they've kind of like hated all the steel out of the way, then play some, Emerald Amethyst. Like, that deck can contend with both of those really well and create so many non-games for yourself. Do I think you should be picking up like Amber Ruby if you're not really sure how to play it? No. Do I think you should be picking up Ruby Steel that like top 8 at some random event? No. It's definitely not one of those where like I would take someone's like pet deck and bring it and be like, oh, I'm going to be successful with it, because I think that those decks are molded to the player more than like to the tournament on average. I think that like some of those choices are not as good, but really it's just telling you like, hey, all of these decks are contenders. The amount of top 8 decks is larger than this one, so you can see that some of those decks were a win away from winning a Stitch as well. regardless of the ink combination. So when you look at all those things, you can really tell like the metagame is very wide, especially as a global aspect of a look. And with so many reported tournaments from 12 players to 30 players and then like 30 to 60, like there are definitely laps that can be shown and like the information can be skewed. Again, I get all of my information from inkdex.com. I would check them out. They're in the description below. You can find all of the tournament decks from this weekend. And while I'm here, there's a giant shout out to AJ in the Discord. I had a hellacious week of Disney Lorcana, 5 straight days of Disney Lorcana, and 3 of them I was not even home for. So AJ took the time and actually put all this data together, and I just made the charts off of it. But that was super helpful, and I'm very, very grateful for having an incredible community member like AJ. So thank you so very much for that. He helped make this meta report probably come out a day or two earlier, if I'm being honest. Again, top 8 decks right here. Let's start looking at some more of the deck list. And if you want with something cool and I haven't seen it yet, definitely hit me up in the comments and let me know about it. Let's get into the next deck. Emerald Ruby. All right. So a few weeks ago, we were doing the meta report. And while I was doing it, there was a report that came out that an Emerald Ruby deck actually won a 1K of like 44 players, and I missed it. It came out after I had recorded and edited already, so like I couldn't add it. I couldn't miss it this time. But what I can say, which is a little sad, is that this list did not win a stitch, but it did top 8. So there is that. But I had to give it some love because we missed it a few weeks ago. So let's take a look at this budget deck. So looking at this list, this is probably a little less budget friendly than the one before. A few weeks ago, the 44-player tournament, I believe the list was $21. This deck has 3 Jim Hawkins, and like the 3 Jim Hawkins might be $21 themselves, but everything else probably leads up to another 20. So if we didn't want to live the dream and play Jim Hawkins with the Fang, we'd probably make this deck significantly cheaper, just in case anyone's really interested in like the full mega budget list of it all. But what this deck really can do is just splatter, and I do mean that word, like splatter lore on the table and just force your opponent to have answers almost immediately. And cards like LeFou protecting the Zimba here is very common and reminiscent of the Arthur and Pinocchio lines from the aggro Ruby Amethyst decks that were kind of floating around in Lies of the Floodborn for a bit. But this list still has the Curse Merfolks, the Flynn Riders, the always classy Minnie Mouses, Enchantresses. There's a lot going on here that's really like effective at moving the game forward, and then having impactful cheap closers such as Hans, Tinkerbell, and of course the wonderful Cusco. Shout out to our friend Yabrizi here. I'm sure he's excited to see Cusco's finding their way in winning deck lists this weekend. And this one was really close. It was really close to finding its way to winning a stitch. All in all, this deck, worst nightmare is Steel. I think if your opponent inks like any Steel card on turn 1, you probably are better off just picking up your cards and walking away, because the likelihood of you being able to get 20 lore is very low. But aside from that, this deck definitely is a little pedal to metal and can punish some of the more controlling decks for not respecting 3 lore characters like Zimba, for sure. Amethyst Steel Jafar picked up a 2nd place finish at a fairly large Stitch Rockstar party into the England's championship event this past weekend. And what I really love about this list is that it's kind of like a respecting itself type deck. We've been seeing so many versions of Amethyst Steel be successful recently, whether it be the budget aggro list or the more tempo list. But Jafar is definitely falling out of favor recently. And what I love here is that this list kind of presents itself as a normal Floodborn control list with the backdoor option of just Jafar wheeling. And I think that there's a good chance that that probably caught many off guard. Whereas, maybe players didn't understand that this wasn't a full commitment to the Jafar list, and they're just seeing like random Jafar sprinkled in. So they're kind of overreacting to the Jafars. And when they're doing that, they're kind of making favorable trades for you so you can punish them later. if you slam a Jafar down and they're worried about Medusing it, and you're just like, all right, cool, my next turn, I just have like Beast, and you're feeling way better about yourself. Adding Grab Your Swords is a kind of reminder that, hey, aggro has been an uptick recently, and that Grab Your Swords can probably help me win several games, because Grab Your Swords is not a common card found in these lists, if I'm being honest. So I really do think this is doing a lot of respectable things towards the metagame. What blows my mind more than anything is there are no Mr. Smees in this list. And that is like, holy crap, because that card is so good. But I guess if you need to make room for Jafars, that's kind of what's going on. But if you really take a look at this list, it is all over the place, which I kind of love. I feel like there's probably a lot of love put into this particular deck list, with the amount of 2s and 3s kind of just finding its home here, and just really knowing its matchups, knowing what we're inking, what we're not, what our mulligans are for. I really do love deck lists that look this way and look completely tuned for the meta that they expected. Huge congratulations to this player for picking up the second place finish. Now it's time for a little bit of a shout out here. Our friend Eric Schwarzer at The Gamer was probably the first player to successfully win 4 Stitch Rockstars. Absolutely crazy. He was able to win all 4 of them in 48 hours, playing in 2 events in the same day. It just worked out with the timing, which is incredible. But hey, he was able to get there. This was his list. So if you're looking at like one of like the most successful lists in Disney Lorcana over the course of a weekend, that's it, man. That's it right there. Like, and it's very straightforward, which I get it. In our interview with Dave, we talked about the mini surfer not really being good into a particular metagame. I will say in the set champs metagame, I think mini surfer is okay. I think Queen's Castle is okay. I think you can really punish opponents for not correctly playing against you or correctly understanding how you're winning games. And if you're winning die rolls, being able to slam the aggro style of Ruby Amethyst feels so very good, making them like overcommit to you consistently, punishing them for it, and then just like dropping castles and stuff like that. Like you can really catch the average player off guard with particular lines for Ruby Amethyst, and you can win games to like significantly faster, if I'm being honest, with this version. For Minnie Mouse, for Castle is like stuff we're not doing and we haven't been doing for quite some time. What I will say about Mr. Schwarzer here is that where my Olaf's at. All right. I want my warm hugs, and you're always classy, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I'm judging. I'm not really. But seriously, Olaf is way better than Minnie Mouse. It's not even close. Shots fired. I know. But all in all, seriously, if you want to read Eric's article on this, there's a little clip there. You can kind of see it. But I actually put in the description below his whole article of his whole weekend and the run that he had. Crazy run. 4 stitches in 48 hours is definitely something to be very, very proud about. So congratulations to you, sir. Set championships week 1 is in the books. Honestly, by the time you're seeing this, you might already be in the thick of it for week 2. I know some of our teammates are actually playing as we speak on a Wednesday night as recording. And I had another teammate that left a store championship because they were probably going to go till 3 in the morning on a Wednesday. I had a friend in the Patreon finished their tournament at 4 a.m. on a Monday. Absolutely insane for these large events on weekdays, going the distance till 2 or 3 in the morning, really making everybody want that extra cup of coffee, I'm sure, in the morning. But all in all, this week has been crazy. The amount of just excitement in the community has been really great to see. So many pictures on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, in the random Discords. Lots of happiness around Disney Lorcana right now. And I'd have to say, like, that's got to feel pretty good for, Ravensburger as a whole, to see this amount of limelight written on the game, and just every layer and level of players finding success, winning stitches, winning playmats. I think that's great. I think that's a really good sign for Lorcana. Very, very excited about those things. I think it's awesome. Before I get out of here officially, this past weekend, I flew out to Minnesota to host a tournament at the Game Center. And I need to take a moment and thank AJ and thank Vo for giving me that opportunity. I had so much fun. I came out there Friday morning. I played in set championship Friday night. I played in a set championship Friday night. I got to talk to the community, have fun, play some games with some of them. Saturday was amazing. We came in, we streamed 5 rounds of Swiss, an entire top 8. The next day, it worked out to where I couldn't play in the set championship, unfortunately, because I knew that it was going to be 6 rounds. I missed 6 rounds. I would have been leaving as the top 8 was going to start, and that's exactly what happened. So we streamed all 6 rounds, and all of those games can be found on the Twitch channel again, twitch.tv/Forbidden Mountain. And they were fun. We had a blast. I had a couple different interviews on there with some of the local players. So you can hear from, the likes of Micah and Christian Young, who are old-time friends of mine, but both found success throughout the weekend. Multiple top 8s for Christian. Micah found a top 8 in the 5K. All in all, it was so great to meet and speak with so many incredible players. Getting to meet the Lorcana twins and Bannable was also really fun, just to have that interaction with fellow content creators. So it was just a great experience. I cannot wait for the Lorcana challenges as a player in this game and the community builder, and at least I try to do when I can. I do my best. I'm so excited to meet people in Atlanta, have the conversations, chat about the game, chat about life in general, and just just have so much fun. So I'm looking forward to it. I think Lorcana is in a wonderful place, and I think we should be pretty blessed for giving it a chance, because right now it's just the beginning. It's the craziest thing. This weekend was the first official organized play for Disney Lorcana, and if you ask me, it was a massive success. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure you check out last week's meta report right here, or if you're interested in one of the interviews with Ryan or Dave, you can find them somewhere else or in the description. See you guys in the next one.